All right, everyone, welcome to the Tonto's Demise Week 7 recap. Oh, what can we talk about this week? Let me take a look at the actual league page here. Did anything really interesting happen this week? There was a lot of just kind of boring games, I thought, this week. Not a whole lot happening outside of Amari Cooper going crazy on Thursday night. I don't really think there were big injuries. They were just. I just say it because I was watching the. Said I watched the Rams and Cardinals game a little bit, and that was kind of boring. The Falcons Patriots game, that was actually kind of boring too. And even I guess unless you're an Eagles fan, the Monday night game was kind of boring to watch as well. At least I thought so. Nice to see Jordan Reed do a little bit at the end there, but very frustrating watching seemingly every Eagle except Alshon Jeffrey is catching the ball from making at least they're making it look easy. The Eagles wide receivers and tight ends, everybody except Alshon Jeffrey, for some reason, catches one out of every three passes that gets sent his way. Actually, might be less than that. It's more like one out of every five. At least it seems like. But anyway, so no big injuries I think this week, except for, of course, Carson Palmer, who, as you probably know, cost the Isotopes possibly the matchup this week. I think I mentioned this on the Line app and this is exactly what happened. I was watching was it the Saints game at 1 o'clock and decided I'm going to go on. I have Justin's access to Justin's Sunday ticket. So I'm going to go on on my phone here and watch the Rams and Cardinals game since I got some players in that game. Be interesting to watch. I'm kind of surprised that was a London game, but it was a 1 o'clock and it wasn't on TV, so I'm not sure about what was up with that. But anyway, and it was probably I think it was the second quarter, and the moment I sign on and start watching this game is the play where Carson Palmer gets hit, throws a duck up into the air, up for grabs, gets intercepted, and like, oh man. And then they're like, Carson Palmer's down on the ground, he's hurt. Looks like he's got a left arm injury. He's holding his left arm, so I'm like, okay, that's not bad. It's not his throwing hand. He might be all right, come back into the game. And the first play right after that, Todd Gurley runs a 20-yard touchdown, so I'm like, okay, this might not be so bad. But then Drew Stanton comes in and immediately throws a pass directly to a Rams, I don't know if it's a linebacker or a DB, but the guy didn't even have to move. Drew Stanton just went back and threw it right to him. And I thought, okay, maybe this isn't going to go so well after all. And so Drew Stanton played, I think, more than half the game. And I know I get the backup points. In playing more than half the game, Drew Stanton got me 5 points. 5. Maybe like 5.5. Something like that. In half of a football game. He looked absolutely awful. And so I don't know what they're going to do, if they're going to stick with him or not. But anybody who is relying on Arizona for the rest of the year, so Justin has Larry Fitzgerald. That's probably going to be a problem. And Adrian Peterson, that might be a problem for him. I don't think anybody else really uses uh, any Arizona Cardinals really. J.J. Nelson, I think Josh uses John Brown once or twice. But yeah, I think what Ellington and Kerwin Williams, some of those guys, they're kind of floating around in the league. I don't know if owned or not, but maybe the running backs might be okay. Get some screen, does nothing but screen passes for the rest of the year, but it's definitely if they stick with Drew Stanton. Maybe yeah, he just went right into the game. Probably didn't practice at all, but he was dreadful. Trying to watch him like he had no idea what was going on. And so, trying to think if there's anything else I need to address. Okay. I think in the podcast last week, I had to choose between a one-armed Scarlett Johansson or Giselle, I believe was the choice. And it depends on the situation, because if it's just like if we're just going for a quick one-night stand kind of thing, where, then I would definitely go one-armed Scarlett Johansson on that one. But if we're talking like actual real relationship with one of them, I would probably go with Giselle, which may surprise some people, but I would have to say it's because Giselle is definitely gives off an impression of at least being a loyal partner, as opposed to Scarlett Johansson, who I definitely know that she was married to Van Wilder. She was married to, well, at least now she's married to somebody, but after she was married, she's been associated, let's just say she's been associated with many men around Hollywood. So I don't know. Maybe maybe that's just an unfair assumption on my part about Scarlett Johansson, but I don't know how much, just how a serious long-term relationship with her would be. And I'm probably talking about this way too much than anybody cares to listen to. But if I had to choose for a one-nighter, it would definitely be one-armed Scarlett Johansson. And if it was something more serious than that, I'd actually probably go with Giselle, even though suffice to say, I am no Tom Brady. All right, enough of that. 8 minutes already? What the hell's going on? You guys are probably sick of me talking. Let's get into the matchups. And the first one is the one that I don't want to talk about, but we got to talk about it first because it is the defending champ, Gags to Riches, going up against the Skellahor Isotopes. And Gags to Riches takes this one down. Final score is 152.45 to 123.9. Like I mentioned, for the Isotopes, Carson Palmer only got 13 points before going out. And according to my notes, the Arizona quarterbacks got 18.6. So yeah, that was a 5.5 point contribution from Drew Stanton there. For Gags to Riches, I believe he had his highest point total of the year so far. It's just the Yahoo recap says, from Gags to Riches, shocks, Skellahor Isotopes. But anyway, Gags to Riches, I think, so they shocked the Skellahor Isotopes, and I'm fairly certain that the Isotopes would have beaten from Gags to Riches any week so far this season, except for this week. So, the week that we played, although obviously with our point total, I don't think we would have beaten anybody anyway. So, Gags to Riches, Drew Brees, 50.5 points. His wide receivers, Devontae Adams, Rashard Matthews, and ended up being Des Bryant, with the empty spot in his roster. Jimmy said go with Des Bryant, who was in there all week, and something happened with your shuffling your lineup there at the last minute. Ended up with nobody in that third receiver spot. But you got Des Bryant, who I think you got 19 points. Who actually, I guess you didn't even need those points from Des Bryant to get the win here. Although I'm just gonna put this out there, and I understand that it doesn't matter that it's I'm trying to put bias out of it because it's my matchup. But like somebody, I think a couple people said, if he had put somebody else into that spot and not left it empty, then it would be kind of into question. But since it was empty, but that said, I believe. Well, I think because one time I remember didn't Tree like his kids. He said his kids changed his lineup or something like that. Then everybody said, "Well, too bad." But I do believe that it's always been that your lineup is your responsibility, and if it's not set or if anything's not right, that's on you. We've always made it. I think everyone has access to our numbers, like Jimmy and I. If you to get ways to quickly get a hold of us, tell us that if there's something wrong, to plug in somebody into your lineup if you need to. If you can't do it yourself for whatever reason. But other than that, I believe that it's always been that and it's your responsibility to make sure that everything is good to go, even if you make a change and accidentally do something like this, leave some empty spot. I don't know if it was an accident or if there was a problem, or what. I don't know what it was. I haven't seen anything on Yahoo to indicate that there was a problem, but that's my 2 cents. That it's your responsibility to make sure and double check your lineup and make sure everything is good to go. But anyway, it's not it's not my call. So then we had the running backs. Marshawn Lynch got himself kicked out and suspended halfway through that game. He only got you just under 1 point. Adrian Peterson, 2 points. Travis Kelce, 13.5. Evan Engram, 18 points. Your kicker, Tucker from the Ravens, looks like he had a couple. At least he had 3 long field goals and a couple PATs there. Yahoo says 14. And then New England defense did pretty well against the Falcons there. I don't know if it was the Patriots defense that good, or was Atlanta just that bad that night. But they had 1 sack and a blocked kick. I think it was figured out to be 22 points there. But there was enough to get past the Isotopes. Their scores were, said Carson Palmer, Arizona quarterbacks, 18.5. Alshon Jeffrey, 5.5. Tyreek Hill, just under 25. Paul Richardson, 14, a little over 14. Running backs, Aaron Jones, about 20 points from him. Todd Gurley, same thing, about 20 points from him. Actually, Jones was more like 23, 24. Gronk, only 8 points. And then said another killer here was Tevin Coleman. Expecting some big things from that Patriots-Falcons game, and it was a dud, more or less. Tevin Coleman thought he would be a good flex play this week. Maybe get a couple catches, maybe punch in a touchdown. But very little. 1.5 points from him. Gano, the kicker, only 1 30-yard field goal. And the Kansas City defense, only thing that saved them was all they had was a blocked kick. They gave up a ton of yards, ton of points. I think all that I got from them was, it was only 3. Maybe it was 6, something like that. Actually, I think it was 6. But anyway, because they had the block kick and then they lost. So those balanced each other out. But anyway, we can make excuses all day long. The Isotopes dropped this one. Said when you get, 18 you get 20. You get basically get 21 points from your quarterback and your defense combined, you are going to lose. So, and that's what happened this week. Just a very frustrating day again. Many of those so far this year, much to the delight of the rest of you, I'm sure. But anyway, also the Isotopes they are knocked out this week. It was a battle between FC Bohoric and the Isotopes. Let's see, Blunt versus Jeffrey, and Jeffrey wasn't quite able to make up the difference there and get past FC Bohoric to survive the knockout pool. So in addition to losing, the Isotopes are knocked out. Gags to Riches, he moves up to 2-5. He is in 11th place, while the Isotopes drop to 2-5. They are in 10th place. All right, next matchup we had Disco going up against New Gods Mad Titans. And Disco, one of the very few 200 pointers of the season, I believe. Let me take a real quick look. I know Justin went over 200 in week 1. Let's see. New Gods Mad Titans in week 2. But I want to say that's been it. Nothing in week 3, nothing in week 4, nothing in week 5, no in week 6, and now, okay, so this is only the third 200-point score of this season so far. Disco, with help of the nearly 50-point performance from Amari Cooper. Final score, 204.9 to 156.9. So not a bad score there for New Gods Mad Titans. No reason to hang your head on this matchup, because nothing you can do whenever you go up against a player who has the best game of what will probably be the best game of his career, at least stat-wise. So that's just the way it goes. Disco, he had Tyrod Taylor at quarterback this week, 42.5 points. Receivers, Michael Thomas, Amari Cooper, and Jarvis Landry. Thomas, 15.5. Amari Cooper, an even 47 on Yahoo here. And Jarvis Landry, just over 22. So pretty good output there from your wide receivers. Tough to compete with that. Your running backs, not so much though. Looks like Hyde had 68 yards, so just under 7. And Marlon Mack, 2.5 points from him. Your tight end, Njoku, let's see, 7.8. James White in the flex, 15.5 points from him. Gostowski, 9, a couple field goals there. And the Pittsburgh Steelers defense, couple turnovers, couple sacks. Yahoo says 16. I believe it was actually somewhere in the 30s, if I remember correctly. It's always never can quite remember what those scores are. Should probably start writing them down like every week and keeping a track of what it is. Just to keep some kind of record for the things that aren't going to be on Yahoo forever, because I can't adjust the actual individual scores. I can only adjust your overall team score, which seems kind of strange, but at least for now. Well, I guess it does make kind of make sense. But anyway, I digress, as I am wont to do. Let's see. As for New Gods Mad Titans, he had Carson Wentz as quarterback, just under 50 points. Receivers, Crabtree, Pryor, and Ted Ginn. Crabtree, 11.5, Pryor, 3.5, and Ginn, just over 21. Your running backs, Gordon and Anderson. Looks like Gordon just under 4, and Anderson just over 4. Tight end is N. O'Leary from Buffalo. I'm not even exactly sure who that is. I don't know his first name. and I don't especially care. Sorry, Miss N. O'Leary, whoever you are, I'm sure you're a nice person. But you got 7.8 points for New Gods here. In the flex, Le'Veon Bell, of course, a little bit over 25. Kicker is Steelers' Boswell. Looks like he actually had 5 field goals this week, couple PATs. Yahoo says 16. And then you went with the Jets defense, who actually had a couple turnovers and a couple of sacks, but they lost the game, gave up a ton of yards there, a lot of points, so they didn't actually do too well. Yahoo says 9. It might have been right around there, or maybe just a little bit more than that. But not enough against Disco this week. A 50-point difference there, pretty much made up entirely of Amari Cooper there. So, like I said, not much you can do when someone has a career day. So keep on going, and not to get too down about this one here. Disco, with that win, he moves up to 3-4, although he's still down in 9th place. And New Gods Mad Titans, he drops to 4-3. He is in 5th place. Next it was the battle of the 3-3s. Possum Magic versus Everybody Ertz. And Possum Magic squeaked this one out. 170.9 to 154.75. Even though Everybody Ertz was on mini vacation or something like that, wasn't able to. I guess he wasn't able to access his lineup to change it there. Which I don't know what Jay's situation is, but I mean, if you have a phone, you can take 10 seconds and switch that out there. At least it seems pretty easy, but maybe he doesn't have a phone or whatever his situation is. I'm not here to draw judgments on anybody, but what he did, I don't think it actually ended up mattering, because even if you would have, your only really other option was, at running back at least, was Gio Bernard, who only scored less than 1 point. So really no difference there between starting Fournette and Bernard there. I mean, you could have put Freeman into a running back spot and really didn't have many choices there, other than maybe the only decent option there was Mohamed Sanu, who would have gotten you pretty much the same score as Freeman, but you would have lost the points there for Freeman's receiving, which, let's see. Let me see. If you would have started Freeman in the running back spot, you would have lost about 5 points from his score, so that would be about 7. And let's say you started Sanu, he pretty much scored the same thing as Freeman in the flex there. So it would have been a 7-point difference. So you still would have lost, but it would have been a lot closer. Starting Torrey Smith this week, he got you 0. That definitely hurt as well. Running back, other wide receiver, said you had Sanu there. The only other option, it looks like, was Jordan Matthews, who only got 3 points. You didn't have Golden Tate or Will Fuller this week. Let's see. But anyway, I said 170 to 154. For Possum Magic, he has benched Russell Wilson for a few weeks now. Perhaps a wise decision, although it looks like Russell Wilson actually outscored your starting quarterback, Alex Smith. Smith went for 57, a little bit over 57. Wide receivers, Curse, Humphreys, and Hogan. Curse, 10 points. Humphreys, 1.5. And Hogan, 11. Or just a little bit over 11 there. So about 20 points from your 3 receivers. Running backs, Thomas Rawls and Zeke. Rawls only got you 1.5. Zeke actually got you, 147 rushing yards. I know he had a lot of receiving there, and I think he had 3 total touchdowns. So that's 17 plus 18 is 35, plus the long touchdown bonus. So he got you about 38.5. Tight end, Hunter Henry, 11.5. In the flex was McKinnon, about 8.5. Your kicker was Robbie Gould from San Francisco. Interesting, starting a San Francisco. Starting anything from San Francisco seems kind of questionable right now, but he got you 5 points, and then you went with the Minnesota defense, a couple sacks there. They did okay. Yahoo says 11. I think it was about probably somewhere in the 20s. Can't remember for sure. As for everybody Ertz, he went with Jared Goff at quarterback, 42 points. His wide receivers, Deshaun Jackson, Julio Jones, and Torrey Smith. Deshaun Jackson, a little bit over 12. Julio Jones, just under 25. Some big garbage time stats there. At the end of that game, got his first touchdown of the year. And again, Torrey Smith, a 0. Leonard Fournette, a 0. Frank Gore, 3.5. Jimmy Graham, 14. Devontae Freeman, 12. Your kicker, Elliott from the Eagles. The guy's still on a roll this year. 2 long field goals, couple PATs. Yahoo says 12. And then Seattle defense did pretty good against the Giants there. Looks like 1 turnover, 1 sack, not too many points there. Did pretty good on yardage as well. Yahoo says 10. I think it was about in the low 20s, something like that. But anyway, so there's a couple of zeros really hurt you there for everybody Ertz. But not said, like I said, not much your bench could have done to help you to get a win this week. So you had some bye week problems with your wide receivers there. Would have liked to have said either Tate or Fuller, although Tate is injured there. And said Amari Cooper had a career day. Maybe Ezekiel Elliott had a career day there too. He had, let's see, about 225 total yards, and those 3 touchdowns, one being a long touchdown. So Yahoo said 43.9 on Yahoo. So maybe not the best game Ezekiel Elliott will ever have, but definitely one of the best. So not much you can do when those things happen. So unfortunately for you, unfortunately for both Huber brothers this week, they went up against career days from Elliott and Cooper there. So, but anyway, Possum Magic with that win, he moves up to 4-3. He is in 6th place, while everybody Ertz drops to 3-4. He is in 8th place. Next, we had FC Bohoric versus the friggin' Laser Sharks, the Dubsy Hooligans. And this one goes to friggin' Laser Sharks. Final score, 185.6 to 130.25. Quarterbacks, friggin' Laser Sharks, again going against the guy he traded Drew Brees for. Let's see, Winston, who actually, again, was the better quarterback. I know you're talking about playing the matchups every week or whatever, but I think every time you claim that you're playing the matchups, Jameis Winston does better than the guy that you start, which I think is usually Prescott there. But anyway, I think they both did, well, Prescott was pretty much even with Drew Brees, but Winston was actually a better play this week than Brees. Anyway, for the Laser Sharks, let's see how he managed to get 185 points. Prescott, well, he had that long touchdown bonus for him to Elliott there. It was like a 70-some yard touchdown. So that bumped him up to just over 50. Mike Evans, 21.8. Aguilar, 14.5. And Marquise Lee, let's see, a little bit over 11. Your running backs, Darkwa and Crowell. Looks like Darkwa, 3.5. And Crowell also 3.5 there. Your tight end, Zach Ertz, just a hair under 20. In the flex, Mark Ingram, 24. Pretty good scores from those two guys. Your kicker, Suckup from Tennessee. Looks like he had 4 field goals. I guess so, because the score was 12-9. So he had 4 field goals. Yahoo says 13. And then you went with the Miami defense, which is a good decision considering your other defense was Arizona, who got pretty much destroyed by the Rams there in London. And even though Miami did win the game, looks like they had 2 turnovers and a couple of sacks. Got you the +3 for the win there, but they gave up a ton of yards and a ton of points there. So Yahoo says 9. So it was probably closer to 16-20, something like that. As for FC Bohoric, not much going on up and down in the middle of his lineup there. Matt Ryan, kind of another disappointing performance, 42.5 points, which I think I mentioned it last week. What was he? He was like in the mid-30s. What he was, so a little bit better than what he's been averaging, but still kind of a disappointing performance, knowing what he's capable of and the guys that they have on that team to be throwing passes to. Your receivers, Larry Fitzgerald, A.J. Green, and Pierre Garcon. Fitzgerald, disappointing, suffering from the Drew Stanton syndrome. Larry Fitzgerald, just under 6. A.J. Green, who usually owns the Steelers, kind of surprising this week, only 7 points from him. Only 3 catches for 40 yards. And then Pierre Garcon, just under 10. Running backs, LeGarrette Blount and Kareem Hunt. The Blunt Hunt, I guess we could call it. Your running back core, the Blunt Hunt. Or is the Hunt Blunt? I don't know. Whichever way. It works both ways, I think, here. As for Blunt, he actually had just under 3. And then Hunt, about 8.5 points from him. No touchdowns there from him. So he's kind of cooled off a little bit after his monster start there. Tight end, you had Austin Hooper, only 1 catch for 6 yards. Keenan Allen in the flex, pretty much this exact same score as A.J. Green, 7.1. Your kicker, Hauschka from Buffalo, looks like he had a couple field goals, a couple PATs. Yahoo says 12. So just remember, it's always usually between a half point to 1.5 points extra than whatever Yahoo says your kicker has. Then Tennessee defense turned out to be a good play against the Cleveland Browns. Looks like they had a couple of turnovers, a couple sacks, didn't give up a whole lot of points or anything. Did pretty good. Yahoo says 17. I want to say it was actually more like 32, something like that. So, but other than, said your quarterback and your defense getting you about 75 points, 80 points there. Not much in between, and a couple big scores there, and 20 points for friggin' Laser Sharks there. 20 from Evans, 20 from Ertz, 20 from Ingram. So that's going to be enough usually to get you past your opponent there, and it was for Laser Sharks. He moves up to 3-4. He is in 7th place. While FC Bohoric, he drops to 4-3, but he is still sitting well right now in 4th place. Next, we had the matchup of the week, the Battle of the Podcasters. Why did I just say it like that? I don't know. A little, I guess, too excited. Space Antelope versus Hillbillies on PCP, the matchup of former Vince teams. And this one goes to Space Antelope, 164.05 to 135.3 for Hillbillies on PCP. As for Space Antelope, take a quick look at his lineup, and did anybody do anything except Space Antelope is being carried more or less by Kirk Cousins right now. Cousins, 59 points. Your receivers, Jordy Nelson, T.Y. Hilton, and Doug Baldwin. Jordy Nelson looks like he's going to be tough to watch the rest of the year, at least until maybe Aaron Rodgers comes back. I think that they're saying that he might be back sooner than expected, but that's got to be tough. It's your throwing shoulder, broken collarbone, for him to be back in 6 weeks, that would make 6 weeks would be just in time to get back for the fantasy playoffs. I know Space Antelope here picked up Aaron Rodgers and has him stashed on the bench there because he was dropped by Mighty Midgets, thinking that he was probably done for the season. But I think it's still a pretty long reach to think that Aaron Rodgers will be back in time to make a difference, because our trade deadline is around, I think, right around. You usually try to make it whatever week Thanksgiving is, like right before Thanksgiving. So maybe that's still a month away. So maybe we'll have a better idea by then of what Aaron Rodgers' status might be. Because obviously Space Antelope isn't going to need him. So maybe that'll be some trade bait for somebody who needs, if anybody needs a quarterback here come playoff time. Because I think Kirk Cousins still has a year left on his keeper eligibility. So I highly doubt that Matt would be keeping Aaron Rodgers instead. And or maybe he would keep, because Rodgers would be a first-round pick next year, and I don't think that he'd waste his keeper on a quarterback in the first round there, when I'm pretty sure Cousins is still eligible. But anyway, Jordy Nelson might be a tough play at least for the next month or so. After watching this first game with Brett Hundley, excuse me, as the Packers quarterback there, and more quarterback woes here for T.Y. Hilton. 4.5 points from him this week. It doesn't look like Andrew Luck's going to be back anytime soon. T.Y. Hilton, if he can't get a big play during the game, he's pretty much worthless. At least most of the season. He's been 9 points or less pretty much every week this year, except for 2 when he's jumped up to almost 30 or a little bit over 30 when he gets a long pass there, long touchdown. So I always used to avoid him because he was kind of like another Deshaun Jackson, where he's really basically worthless unless he can get you one of those really long catches each week, which it definitely doesn't happen each week. So he's either really hit or miss. And but I give credit to T.Y. Hilton's credit. Over the past probably year or two, he's turned into a pretty solid overall PPR wide receiver here. Pretty consistent numbers, I think, if you look back to the last year or two. But not this year. Struggling without Andrew Luck there. So he's either putting up 30 points or he's giving you 5 or 6 like he did this week. And your other receiver, though, was Doug Baldwin. Good game from him, a little bit over 24. Your running backs, Latavius Murray and Joe Mixon. You finally got something from Murray here. He broke I don't think it was a long touchdown. There was no bonus there, but it was a pretty long touchdown run. So that got you up over 100 yards. Take a quick look if it says here. He had 2 30-yard runs, and his touchdown was a 30-yarder. So he was able to break a couple big ones to get you over 100 this week. As for Mixon, looks like he had just under 5 points. Safarian Jenkins, pretty much pencil him in for a 1 touchdown every week. He's the new Eric Decker. But anyway, he only had 3 catches for 20 yards, but he did get a touchdown. I think he's been scoring a touchdown. Yeah, every week for the past 4 weeks now, he's been scoring a touchdown. Although he hasn't been doing much else in terms of getting you points there, he's getting you this 7 for the touchdown. And in the flex, you went with Danny Amendola. Only 4.5 points from him. Bailey was your kicker. He made 2 PATs before going out with an injury. I'm surprised there hasn't been a cry for team kicker points. Whoever comes in and kicks the extra points there if your kicker gets injured in the game. But that's not hopefully that's not a thing that's ever going to happen. I think it actually used to be that way, wasn't it? We had team kickers and team quarterbacks. Just frustrating all around there. But anyway, Bailey, he got you 2 points. And then Carolina, even though they gave up 17 points, those points came from the defense of the Bears. So Carolina actually did pretty well for you here, even though they lost. Looks like they had a blocked kick, a couple sacks. I'm not sure about the turnovers there, but the yardage was really low. I want to say they only had, and it's very rare to see that the scoring for our first downs is always, if you get more than 3 points for first downs, it's pretty rare, and you're very lucky because, and I think you actually got 9 points for their first downs because the Bears only had 5, which is just extremely rare. I think doing these scores every week for the past 10 years, to see a team get, I don't know, maybe if we should think about the numbers work out, if we should adjust it maybe to make it a little bit more, because you either get, probably 95% of the time, you get either 0 or 3 because teams go over 15 first downs all the time. It's tough to get any points from those first downs. So I don't know if we should make it 0 to 7, 8 to 16 or something like that. Maybe 8 to 15. Well, you know what I mean. 0 to 7, 8 to 15, and something maybe a little bit higher. But anyway, the point is you got 9 points from only 5 first downs, and that happens very rarely that the team is such futility from the team there. And so that was the biggest difference here. Yahoo says 16, and I honestly can't remember, and I don't have it written down, what exactly the Carolina Panthers D score was. I want to say it was 25, something in that. Maybe a little bit more. It might have been about 30, in the low 30s there. But that was enough you got 60 from Cousins and 30 or so from the Carolina defense. So that's about 90 points there, which is more than half of your score. So you didn't need a whole lot of production in between, sandwiched in between in your lineup there to get a win. When you get that kind of points, those kind of points from the quarterback and defense. Anyway, as for Hillbillies on PCP, he went with Ben Roethlisberger this week. It was out of Phillip Rivers because Deshaun Watson, who he's been using, was on a bye. Actually, Rivers, most weeks, I think he's been the better play, but this week he actually wasn't the better play. Roethlisberger was, but the difference was only about half of a point. Roethlisberger, just under 33. Your receivers, Antonio Brown, Demaryius Thomas, and Adam Thielen. A little bit, kind of a quiet performance from Antonio Brown, only 16.5. Demaryius Thomas, just under 3. Don't know how much his ankle injury was affecting him there this week. And then Thielen, just over 9. And then your newly acquired running back, LaShawn McCoy, for Chris Hogan. Man. Still, McCoy, and you actually took out Jordan Howard and put in Chris Ivory, which, let's see, actually turned out to favor you a little bit with Fournette being out there. Actually, the better play would have been TJ Yeldon, it turns out, who I think every year there's we have one TJ Yeldon sighting where he has one big game, much like, who's the other Jaguars guy? Oh, Mercedes Lewis. He only performs whenever they're in London. Otherwise, you don't even know he's still in the league. But then they have a London game when he'll catch 3 touchdowns. But anyway, for PCP here, said he just got McCoy, said he was due to get some touchdowns. He didn't have any so far this year. And you were right. Actually had 2 touchdowns this week and 90 yards. So a little bit over 20 there for McCoy. And then Chris Ivory, You said you picked up and plugged him in. He did score a touchdown. He had almost 50 yards rushing, but he also lost a fumble. So he got you about 10.5, which is a little 4 points more than you would have gotten from Jordan Howard, actually. Then Delaney Walker, your tight end. Let's see, 11.5 from him. Same thing from McCaffrey, 11.5. Kicker was Lutz from New Orleans, a little bit over 7. And then another surprising outcome here was the Denver defense. Been slipping the past couple weeks here after looking like they were going to dominate all season long. No help there from the Denver offense, really, as the final score was 21-0 there. They got shut out. So the Chargers defense shutting out the Denver Broncos there. Not helping Demaryius Thomas for you either. Looks like Denver had a couple sacks, but they lost. I don't think the yardage was too crazy, though. Yahoo says 6. It was probably right around that total. But it wasn't enough there, as Kirk Cousins almost doubles up Ben Roethlisberger. So even though McCoy had a pretty good game, Latavius Murray kept pretty close pace to him in terms of rushing there. So those kind of balanced each other out. And let's see. So Carolina defense heavily swung this one back over in favor of Space Antelope there. And Doug Baldwin practically outscored your 3 wide receivers all by himself there. Although, said Jordy and T.Y. didn't do too much there. But as for the matchup here, not enough for Hillbillies on PCP. He drops to 5-2. Still sitting pretty, though, in second place. And Space Antelope, he is right underneath you. He is also 5-2 in third place. So, win or lose that matchup, you're still sitting pretty good in terms of the playoff run here. And then the final matchup was Shawshank Athletics versus Mighty Midgets. And Shawshank takes over first place alone with this win over Mighty Midgets. Score 160.05 to 103.15. Actually, I think I have to take I think Jameson, I had everything set for Monday night to be correct going into the game, figuring no one was going to really have, unless Blunt got a couple catches or something like that, but actually Crowder had 3 rushing yards, so I'm actually going to have to tack that off. I didn't tack that yet off of Mighty Midget's score, so that's what 0.3, so your actual score was be 102.85. I'll have to switch that up here. So it probably doesn't make any difference in the grand scheme of things, 0.3, since the Mighty Midgets are now 1-6 and in 12th place there, so highly unlikely that 0.3 is going to matter into anything here. But anyway, Shawshank Athletics, as I said, he gets his 6th win. He is in first place, sole possession of first place, and I should say. Let's see, Tom Brady, 42 points. Receivers, Benjamin, John Brown, and Robert Woods. Benjamin, 9.5. John Brown, again, suffering from Drew Stanton syndrome. 1.5 points from him. And then Robert Woods was actually the best play of your 3 receivers this week, as he got you 11. Well, just under 11. Because he had some rushing yards there, too. Your running backs, Jay Ajayi and DeMarco Murray. Looks like Ajayi, a little bit over 5. And Murray, basically the same thing, just under 6. Tight end was Watson, 8.8. And then in the flex, you had Chris Thompson. Another good performance from him. Not much. So again, most of his stats come from receiving there. He had a couple catches and a touchdown. 17.5 points from him. Your kicker, Butker from Kansas City. Looks like he had 3 field goals, 3 PATs. Yahoo says 14. And then another big difference maker here was the Jacksonville defense. 10 sacks. I think no turnovers, though, and they got the shutout. So that's 25 points right there. 28 points with the win just from your sacks and shutout there. 28 points. I don't think it was too much higher than that, though, because I think they gave up a decent amount of yardage there. So it might have been 35, 38, something like that. As for Mighty Midgets, he traded away for Cam Newton, got him. Uh, who was your other? You had Andy. Is your other quarterback? Yeah, you traded. You got Andy Dalton previously from another trade. He actually scored less than Cam Newton did, but disappointing performance here from Cam Newton there. Only 28.5 points. Hoping for more than that from a guy that you traded for, who had been pretty hot the past couple weeks at least. Taking a quick look here, he was the previous 3 weeks he was between 48 to 60 there. So drop off here to only 28 this week. Your receivers, Brandon Cooks, 16.5, Jamison Crowder, about 5, and Funchess, who you also traded for, hoping to have Cam Newton to Funchess there work out for you, but not this week. Only 8 points from him. Ty Montgomery and Derrick Henry also acquired in that trade. One of those trades there. Montgomery not in the flex. I'm not sure how healthy he still is, but he's going to be a problem probably too here with also, I said, with Rodgers being out, but also with Aaron Jones looking like he's going to be the guy going forward, looking better. I think said Montgomery, he only had 1 catch and only 6 rushing yards there, so he only got you half a point. As for Derrick Henry, looks like he got you 1.5 points. So only 2 points combined from your running backs. Tight end, Kyle Rudolph, 9.5. Kamara in the flex, 15.5. Your kicker was Bryant. Looks like he missed 2 field goals. One was the block there, I think, from the Patriots, and 1 PAT. So he actually got you -1. So between your 2 running backs and your kicker, you got 1 point. Then Buffalo's defense, another good game from them. Couple turnovers, looks like 3 turnovers, and they won the game, though they gave up a lot of points and a lot of yards there to Winston. I don't think the rushing stats were that high, but the passing stats were definitely up there. Yahoo says 13. It was probably closer to 18 to 20, something around there. But not enough for Mighty Midgets this week. Said pretty much low scores all around, except the only good performance there was Kamara and your defense. Shawshank, not much. Said even what said 160 is a pretty good score, but you didn't really have to face much competition this week from the Mighty Midgets. No offense there, just going by the numbers. And yeah, is this the last matchup? Yeah, so I think we're about it. So Mike said Shawshank Athletics. He is all alone in first place, 6-1. 1 more win, and he is pretty much guaranteed a playoff spot. I think so. That's all for the matchups. I think I said the Isotopes are knocked out this week. So let me put that on here on my trusty notes. So the people who are still in for the knockout pool are Kevin, Justin, Detling, Brian, and Jay. Still in for the knockout pool. Kevin, Brian, Detling, Justin, and Jay. All right, so we take a quick look at the standings here. We got 6-1 at the top. We got a 1-6 at the bottom. We got 2 5-2s and 2 2-5s at the bottom there. So we again perfect symmetry. We've got 1 6-1, 2 5-2s, 3 4-3s, 3 3-4s, 2 2-5s, and 1 1-6. So pretty much the middle is wide open there. We have said 6 teams are either 4-3 or 3-4. So this week could be pretty big. I think I said last week that this past week could have been really big in terms of determining the playoff run here, and it could have been, but it wasn't, because things only got a little bit more jumbled because said Disco was able to beat New Gods, and Kevin the Laser Sharks beat FC Bohoric. That could have been Jimmy's 5th win. That could have been Justin's 5th win. So that would have, I think if you have 5 wins at this point, you're well on your way to at least making the playoffs there. Said if you're 5-2, it said if you have 5 wins after 7 weeks, you should feel pretty comfortable. Of course, nothing is guaranteed or set in stone, but at least I would definitely feel pretty comfortable. As for the 6 teams between 4th place and 9th place, so even the 2 and 5 teams, technically you're still in it, but you are on the brink of, you can really only lose one more time. As for the 4 and 3s, where you can pretty much count the midgets, they are on life support for sure, with 6 losses there, 1 more loss, and he is most likely done. But so things just got more jumbled there with Disco taking out New Gods this week, and Laser Sharks taking down FC Bohoric there. So putting all those guys into a 4 and 3, 3 and 4 mess here. So let's take a quick preview into the upcoming week's matchups and how they're going to affect the standings. Since I believe there is going to be no podcast this week, Brian might throw something together, or Bean and Disco might throw something together, or maybe Brian will take some calls from people and throw some. Who knows what's going to happen? But anyway, let's take a look, and we're going to have the Isotopes versus Everybody Ertz. Ertz, he's 3 and 4, so he could pretty much put the Isotopes away with a win this week. Pretty much, not entirely, but get pretty close there. He needs to get back to 500. Then New Gods Mad Titans versus Hillbillies on PCP. New Gods needs this one to get to 5 wins. Hillbillies should be a pretty close matchup there. Be interesting to see what happens. It's not really a must-win for Hillbillies. He can afford to lose here, although of course he would like to knock New Gods Mad Titans back to even there at 4 and 4. Then we have the Laser Sharks versus Mighty Midgets. Anytime, just not the year for Mighty Midgets here. The projections look pretty close actually, but let's say Laser Sharks, you definitely need this one to get back to 500. Maybe Mighty Midgets can play some spoiler here for the rest of the season. So the projections are pretty close, at least so far there on Yahoo. So that's a fairly good matchup here so far for, New Gods Mad Titans might be all right. It's a tough matchup, but Laser Sharks probably happy with his getting Mighty Midgets this week when you need a win. And then FC Bohoric versus Space Antelope. He needs to get that win to not avoid dropping to 500 there, 4 and 4. Looks like he's pretty heavily favored actually so far against Space Antelope this week. So we'll see what happens. Possum Magic versus Disco. Both of these guys need a win. Disco looking to get to 500 back up, while Possum looking to get win number 5 there. So that should be a pretty good matchup. And then we have Gags to Riches versus the number 1 Shawshank Athletics. So basically, Gags to Riches needs to win. He's one of the teams that needs to win pretty much every week from here on out. He's actually a little bit the favorite here so far against Shawshank Athletics. I think this is a big week for buy. The next couple weeks are pretty big in terms of buys, so that could be a problem for a lot of people. So in terms of what could happen with the standings here, let's see, we could end up with a lot of 4 and 4 teams. So that if Brian can knock off Jimmy, if Kevin can win, that would put him at 4 and 4. If Space Antelope can beat FC Bohoric, he'd be 4-4. If Disco can take down Possum Magic, they would both be 4-4. So that could potentially be what, 1, 2, 3, 4, potentially 5 4-4 teams. So if the Isotopes can get a win, or I said that, well, it could be 5. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Could be 6 4-4 teams actually. So all of the teams that are 4-4, or 4-3, or 3-4 right now could potentially all be 4-4 next week. So that would be pretty interesting to see. And if that happens, well, so for that to happen, everybody Earths would have to beat the Isotopes and pretty much knock them out of any chance of coming back. And said Gags to Riches, he's got to beat Shawshank. Said if the Isotopes and Gags to Riches can get a win this week and get to 3-5, and if we can get a bunch of 4-4s, so that would still be leaves the door open there for some guys to squeak in the playoff door. Let's see, but the reality of it right now, I think, as the playoff, the standings are starting to shape for the playoffs here. Josh, Brian, and Detling, at this point, I would have to say, are virtual locks for the playoffs at 5 wins already. So that's 3 of the 6 playoff spots are already basically taken. So that leaves, again, only 3 spots for what is right now at least, is 6, 7, 8 teams still trying to fight for those 3 spots there. So it should be interesting. These next few weeks will determine what happens here. A lot of bye weeks here coming up, and just a lot of teams that having problems with those, from injuries there. Between byes and injuries, a lot of teams are going to have problems these next few weeks. And to be perfectly honest, that's the only thing still giving me any glimmer of hope on this season, is because I'm actually okay. Knock on wood so far. I'm actually doing okay in terms of injuries and bye week. My bye weeks might be okay. A little bit of a problem in week 10, I think, but so other people have bye week problems. The people I'm playing here in the next few weeks are going to have some bye week issues as well. But then also got some people who are having issues with still have to play. People who have receivers who are suffering from being stuck with backup quarterbacks there, and just a lot of things that are going wrong for a lot of teams here. So it's still pretty much up in the air as in terms of who's going to definitely move up and who's going to move down here. So this will be another interesting week where a lot of things could either take shape here if FC Bohoric, New Gods Mad Titans, Possum Magic, and if those 3 guys can all get their 5th wins this week, that pretty much. So even though this is week 8 coming up, so if you got 5 wins in 8 weeks, you're pretty much on track. So I'm not going to guarantee anything for anybody here, but either things are going to get much more muddled, or the playoff picture is going to start to take shape here. So it's going to be another interesting week. These matchups, like I said, a lot of bye week issues. Only a 1-point difference in projection here between Hillbillies on PCP versus New Gods Mad Titans. Let's see, do you have any bye week? Any bye week issues for you guys here? Let's see. Doesn't look like it. Yeah, you're pretty much, I mean, other than Brian benching Delaney Walker this week, said I don't think, well, and New Gods Mad Titans going to be, have to wait and see what he does with his wide receivers there. He's got Juju Smith-Schuster in right now. So Terrell Pryor to the bench. Emmanuel Sanders, think he's going to be, he's still hurt with that ankle. Let's see. But for the most part, you're both, like I said, that kind of balances out there with not having, so Doyle's actually doing okay. So between not having Walker and not having maybe Sanders kind of balances out. Should be a pretty good matchup there. You're both basically at full strength here, so that'll be a good matchup to watch. What else do we have? So some of these are pretty close in terms of the projections. FC Bohoric versus Space Antelope should be pretty good. See what the bye week blues here. Anybody? Looks pretty good for FC Bohoric. He's got, let's see, Zach Miller at tight end, Dion Lewis in the flex, because he's got no Larry Fitzgerald this week. Or the Rams defense, he's going with the Saints. As for Space Antelope, no Jordy Nelson or Cooper Kupp this week. So he's got, let's see, Amendola, who you've been using already anyway. And you got Jalen Richard from Oakland in the flex there. Could be a decent, you're getting lucky, looking out that no Marshawn Lynch this week, although it is against Buffalo, so that's always a tough matchup. But then again, so Jameis Winston just put up 60 points against them last week, so some decent matchups here. You said you're both, again, there is a couple bye week issues, but you're both basically at full strength or close to it this week, so that should be a good matchup. Other than that, there's really nothing real noteworthy in the other matchups to talk about. So it's going to be a good week. Like I said, it's either things are going to really start to take shape, or it's just going to get much more muddled. I'm rooting for much more muddled, as we know, Gags and I are still trying desperately to climb our way back up and maybe scrape and claw our way into grabbing that number 6 seed into the playoffs here. I would imagine that's the best that we can hope for out of our seasons at this point here. So, all right, that's way too much talking for me for one night. Enough listening for you guys, I'm sure. More than enough. All right, that's it for week 7. Said Josh, he's alone in first place now. Congrats to him. He can rub it into Brian's face for a week or two. And so this week, the Isotopes are the ones eliminated from the knockout pool. Good luck to everybody here in week 8. As I said, I think there's going to be no podcast this week. Nothing to look forward to, but said maybe a couple people might throw something together. So to give us a little bit of entertainment in previewing the week here. Although, what the Thursday night game is what the Ravens and Dolphins. Ugh, what a disgusting matchup there. I don't even care. I don't even have any interest in watching that. It just sounds terrible. But anyway, and tonight, don't forget. But I'm sure by the time you listen to this, it'll be too late. You already know what have happened. But we'll see what. It's just always interesting to see what happens with the free agent claims. We got 2 guys who with 0, Possum and Gags. And in typical, said I didn't mention this last week, but in typical Tree Size fashion, we are halfway through the season, and your waiver budget is gone, and you have 3 transactions left. So if you're going to make a playoff run here, and actually, you're the only, Possum Magic is the only team currently in the playoffs, if they started today, who is not over 1,000 points. The only other teams not over 1,000 are Gags to Riches and the Mighty Midgets. In terms of the waiver budget there, so they both have 0. Midgets and Isotopes are right around 100. Ertz and Laser Sharks are in the 60s, and pretty much all the guys at the top are in the 140, 130. Well, and look, I keep looking up the line here; it keeps getting lower. You're all sitting pretty well in the hundreds there, 130, 40, 20, 80, 20 there. So you're all doing pretty good. You're all doing good this season so far. So you haven't had to make many moves there and transactions and spend that money here. So always a nice luxury to have in the first half of the season here. So, anything else? I think that's it. So good luck to everybody this week. Looking forward to these matchups. Should be interesting to see what happens. Hopefully things get just muddled up a little bit more here. So that's the only thing. Again, giving me or Gags a glimmer of hope. Maybe you guys will just be kind and put me, Gags, and Jim out of our misery here sooner than later. So we'll see. All right, thanks everybody, and good luck everyone, and we'll see you back here next week. All right, thanks. See you. I'm not good with finishing up. I don't know what to say because I don't want to end up saying just good luck, but I know you're expecting it, so I'll just do it. All right, everybody. Thanks for listening, and good luck to everyone this week, but especially to me.